In this series on increasing the language skills of students from low-income backgrounds, it's critical that we really talk about the achievement gap. So what is the achievement gap? In your own words, jot it down, say it out loud. What comes to mind for you? Along those lines, what is educational inequity? So educational inequity is the disparity in the quality of the education between certain students' experiences compared to others. Unfortunately, the reality in our country is that currently where a child is born determines the quality of his or her education. Now, educational inequity starts early and gets worse, more significant over time. By the time students reach 4th grade, children living in low-income communities, on average, are already over 2 or 3 grade levels behind their higher income peers. Just half of students from low-income communities graduate by the age of 18. And those graduates are only performing on average at about an 8th grade level. Only 1 in 10 students raised in poverty are graduating from college. Educational inequity prevents children from fulfilling their potential. It's not that 1 in 10 students should be graduating based on their aptitude, their potential, but that the access that they've had to quality education from the time they were born through high school was not comparable to that of their higher income peers. So why does this achievement gap matter? 74% of children identified as poor readers in 3rd grade remained poor readers in 9th grade. If we don't start to tackle the achievement gap before students are even entering school, but certainly in those early grades, students are not being then set up on a path to success. Poor early literacy is actually the single strongest predictor of both high school dropout rates and future prison occupancy. Penitentiaries can accurately predict the number of cells to prepare, and do so by the number of students in local public schools reading below grade level in the 2nd grade. When we think about that, folks, we really need to figure out how we can be part of the solution. What are we going to do so that decisions by our culture aren't being made about the future outcomes of 2nd graders? So how can we intervene early and thoughtfully and intentionally to ensure that those aren't the outcomes for our students? Taxpayers are actually currently spending more money to keep adults behind bars than is spent on the intervention programs to help those same people when they were students. Imagine the shifts we could make. Just to share a personal anecdote about the achievement gap, my husband and I were born in the same state of California in the same year, but in different communities. 100% of the students from my school went on to a 4-year college, and he was part of only 5% from his school that went on to a 4-year college. And that's in the same state within our union. So it really does make a difference to think about the access that a student has to a quality education and how we can shift that to ensure that all students have access to quality education. The achievement gap matters because it limits the life choices, professional options, and incomes for our students. It can weaken families and communities without ensuring that all communities have access to great education. And the reality is that currently our low-income communities are predominantly children of color. And so there is an added burden on our students with society then putting on them these low expectations that are not accurate and discriminating against many of our students. Here are additional references, but I just encourage you to think about how each of us as educators can be part of closing that achievement gap and intentionally recognizing that not all students come into school on the same playing field. And so we need to be thoughtful in everything we do, whether it's an assessment or our instruction, to consider what do we need to do prior to really authentically being able to determine our next steps and what may be the root cause of a student's delay.